Hey there, Mary Beth here. Welcome to That's Good News, where I guide you to the Savior, inspire you to live for the Lord, and help deepen your understanding of God's Word. Have you ever heard of the phrase, obedience brings blessings? Think about it. If you obey somebody, you will be rewarded. You will be blessed. Are you going to obey just anybody? Or do you obey people that you trust? Do you obey people that you love? If someone is mean and hateful to you and they tell you to do something, are you going to obey them? Maybe not. We choose to obey the people that we love and trust. And we see that in Scripture. Welcome to What's in the Word Wednesday, and today we are going to learn about Noah building the ark. So if you have your Bibles, get them out and open them up to Genesis chapter 6. We're going to go through Genesis 6 through chapter 9. So let's dive in, starting with verse 1. Now it came about when men began to multiply on the face of the land, and daughters were born to them, that the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves whoever they chose. Then the Lord said, My spirit shall not strive with man forever, because he also is flesh. Nevertheless, his days shall be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. Those were the mighty men who were of old, men of renown. In verse 5, Then the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great on the earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. The men saw the women. They were looking and saw that they were beautiful, and they chose to marry whoever they wanted. They were not picky about who they married. The sons of God could be men who followed after God, who obeyed God to begin with, and the daughters of men could be daughters who didn't obey God, who chose to do whatever they wanted to, who did not honor God. And when the sons of God saw how beautiful the daughters of man were and decided to marry them, they took their eyes off of obeying God to doing whatever they wanted to do, to following their flesh. And when they decided to marry whoever they wanted to, it pulled them down. It meant that, verse 5, wickedness of man was great on the earth, and every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. They took their eyes off of obeying God and wanting to feed their flesh. And this was on purpose. Not God's plan, but this was our enemy Satan's plan. From the day that God cursed Satan and said that he was going to send the seed of woman, a child from the woman, to defeat him, Satan did everything he could to keep that from happening. And this was his first time he was trying to defile the seed of women. He made them intermarry. He made them disobey God and evil, just feeding their flesh, wanting to do evil continually, trying to pollute and defile the seed of woman so that the righteous seed of woman could not come and defeat the enemy Satan. So let's see what happens next in verse 6. The Lord was sorry that he had made man on the earth, and he was grieved in his heart. This doesn't mean that God made a mistake. This means that he was broken. He loved his creation. He loved everyone he created. And because he created them with freedom, God is a God of freedom. He creates us with free will to choose. Man was choosing to disobey God and to obey flesh, what he wanted to do. And this broke God's heart. If you have someone that you love and you see them making choices that bring hurt to themselves, that are not good for them, does it break your heart? Do you feel so sad for them? That's the same thing. God, he was grieved in his heart, and he felt so broken by their choices and their actions because he knew that the seed of woman was being defiled. He knew that they were all turning away from him to obey their own flesh instead of obeying and honoring him. And obeying God leads to blessings, but when you disobey God, it leads to death. So let's see what happens next. Verse 7, the Lord said, I will blot out man whom I have created from the face of the land, from man to animals to creeping things and to birds of the sky, for I am sorry that I have made them. Sin leads to death. The punishment for sin is to be forever separated from God. God, He is righteous. He is just. And He must punish sin. And you and I are born in sin. We are born forever separated from God. But we get to choose. We can choose to be forever separated, or we can choose to be redeemed and be made right. But the punishment of sin is death. Let's see what happens next. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. Out of all the men, there was one who found favor in God's eyes, and that was Noah, because he obeyed God. Let's see what happens. These are the records of the generations of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, blameless in his time, and Noah walked with God. And Noah was the only one at this time who obeyed God, who trusted God, even though everyone else around him was choosing to do what they wanted to do. Noah, he obeyed God. He chose a path of righteousness while everyone else was choosing the path to destruction. Even if everyone else around you is choosing a path to destruction, that doesn't mean you have to follow. If you love God, you will obey Him because He loves you. You can choose to follow God. You can choose to be different, and God sees it, and He will honor that difference. You will be blessed. Let's see how Noah was blessed. Noah became the father of 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now the earth was corrupt in the sight of God, and the earth was filled with violence. God looked on the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted their way upon the earth. Then God said to Noah, the end of all flesh has come before me, for the earth is filled with violence because of them. And behold, I am about to destroy them with the earth. Make for yourself an ark of gopher wood, and you shall make the ark with rooms, and shall cover it inside with pitch. This is how you should make it. The length of the ark, 300 cubits, its breadth 50 cubits, and its height 30 cubits. You shall make a window for the ark, and finish it a cubit from the top, and set a door of the ark in one side of it. You shall make it with lower, second, and third decks. Behold, even I am bringing the flood of water upon the earth to destroy all flesh, in which is the breath of life. From under heaven, everything that is on the earth shall perish. But I will establish my covenant with you, and you shall enter the ark, you and your sons and your wife and your sons' wives with you, and every living thing of all flesh. You shall bring 2 of every kind into the ark to keep them alive with you. They shall be male and female. God had a plan to save Noah and his family. And He has a plan to save you from the punishment of sin. And that is sending Jesus. Jesus is God's perfect Son, and He lived a perfect life. He never sinned. And since the punishment of sin is death, Jesus, He came and took the punishment for your sin. He died in your place so you wouldn't have to die. And Jesus is the only one who could die for you because He never sinned. He was perfect. I couldn't die for you because I've sinned. Your friends couldn't die for you because they've sinned. Jesus is the only way for you to be saved from the punishment of sin. And this ark was the only way for Noah and his family to be saved from this punishment of sin, from the whole flood. So let's see what God says next. Of the birds after their kind, and of the animals after their kind, of every creeping thing of the ground after its kind, 2 of every kind will come to you and keep them alive. As for you, take for yourself some of all food which is edible, and gather it to yourself, and it shall be food for you and for them. Thus Noah did according to all God commanded him, so he did. Noah obeyed God. God told him to build something he had never seen before. He wasn't around water. He didn't know what a boat was. He didn't know what an ark was, but Noah loved God, and he trusted God, and he obeyed God. And because Noah was righteous, his family was found righteous as well. Noah led his family on the path of righteousness, while these other men were leading their family down the path of destruction. Men, it is so important which path you lead your family down. You can lead them to God, or you can lead them away from God. If you lead them away from God, you are leading them to death. But if you're leading them to God, you are leading them to salvation and to blessings. That's exactly what Noah did. So let's see what happens next. Chapter 7, verse 1. Then the Lord said to Noah, "Enter the ark, you and all your household, for you alone I have seen to be righteous before me in this time." It took Noah about 120 years, I think, to build the ark. All this time, Noah was building this huge ark that could carry all of these animals and carry his family and carry all of the food. The people saw him building it, and I'm sure that they ridiculed him and made fun of him, but he stayed the course. He was faithful, and it says in this time, he was alone to be found righteous. Out of all that time, all these other people could have changed their mind. They could have followed Noah and become righteous, but he was still the only one who was found righteous. And all this time, he was explaining to the people, I'm sure, hey, God is going to flood the world. You can be saved. I'm building this ark. Follow me. Let's be saved. There is a way for salvation. He was letting them know, here's what's going to happen. Here's how you can save your life. But even then, they didn't listen. Noah was the only one who was found righteous. So God said, "You shall take with you every clean animal by sevens, a male and his female. And of the animals that are not clean, 2, a male and his female." God was preserving a righteous line for him through Noah. And he was preserving the lives of the animals, 2 by 2s. He was going to save the animals. Also of the birds of the sky by 7s, male and female, to keep offspring alive on the face of all the earth. 4, after 7 more days, I will send rain on the earth 40 days and 40 nights, and I will blot out from the face of the land every living thing that I have made. So God told Noah and his family to get in the ark, and they obeyed, and they waited there 7 days before the floods came. Verse 5, and Noah did according to all that the Lord commanded him, because he loved him. He had his face set upon him. He wanted to be righteous before God, and God was using him. Yes, Noah had to work. Noah had to do hard things, but Noah saw that it was worth it. He knew that he was on the right path. He knew he was going to be saved. No matter how hard it was, he didn't lose faith in God, because God was the one that he loved and that he was going to save. Verse 6, now Noah was 600 years old when the flood water came upon the earth. Then Noah and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives with him entered the ark because of the waters of the flood, of clean animals and animals that are not clean, and birds and everything that creeps on the ground. There went into the ark to Noah by 2s, male and female, as God commanded Noah. God sent the animals to Noah. The animals obey God better than we obey God. God tells the animals what to do, and they like, yes, sir, I will go. But God tells us what to do, and if we don't have our eyes and our heart fixed and focused on Him, then we won't obey. If we're focused on ourselves, we're going to do what we want to do. But the animals obeyed God, and they went to the ark. Verse 10, it came about after the 7 days that the water of the flood came upon the earth. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, on the 17th day of the month, on the same day, all of the fountains of the great deep burst open, and the floodgates of the sky were open. So the water came from the ground, and the water came from the sky. And this is the first time that anyone has ever seen water come from the sky. It was coming from all around. Verse 12, the rain fell upon the earth for 40 days and 40 nights. On the very same day, Noah and Shem and Ham and Japheth, the sons of Noah, and Noah's wife, and the 3 wives of his sons with them entered the ark. They and every beast after its kind, and all the cattle after their kind, and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth after its kind, and every bird after its kind, all sorts of birds. So they went into the ark of Noah by twos of all flesh, in which was the breath of life. Those that entered, male and female of all flesh, entered as God had commanded him. And the Lord closed the door behind them. The ark was the only way for them to be saved from the flood. Jesus is the only way for you to be saved from the punishment of your sin. God calls you to him. He is calling you right now, if you have never believed in Jesus, to come to him. But if you have believed in Jesus, you are saved. And listen, it says that God closed the door behind them. They didn't close the door. God sealed them in. They knew that they were going to be safe. When you believe in Jesus, you are sealed. Salvation cannot be taken from you. Even if you face hard times, you are still saved. Even if you question God, you are still saved. On this ark for 40 days and 40 nights, it was raining. They were in there with all of these animals. About 35,000 pairs of animals were on the ark with Noah and his family. Do you think they lost their faith during that time? I am sure they got frustrated. I am sure that they lost their faith. They didn't think that they were going to die, though. They knew that they were going to live, but I'm sure that they got frustrated. But they were still saved. Just because you struggle with your faith sometimes doesn't mean that you lose your salvation. Once you're saved, God seals you, and you will forever be saved. Let's see what happens next. Verse 17. Then the flood came upon the earth for 40 days, and the water increased and lifted up the ark so it rose above the earth. Think about it. During this time, a lot of people romanticize Noah and the flood. You see it placed, you see murals painted on nurseries of children. It's like, oh, this childhood story of all these animals getting on the ark. But no, the ark was the place of salvation, but outside the ark was destruction and death. The floods were rising. People were dying. Animals were dying. I'm sure there were sounds of screams and people trying to grab onto the ark to be saved. But you can't grab onto someone else's faith to be saved. You had to be inside of the ark to be saved. Everyone outside of the ark was going to die. Even if they grabbed onto the ark, they couldn't have enough strength to survive the massive flood that was happening. If you think that you are going to be saved because you are following the faith of your family, you are following the faith of your friends, and you haven't truly walked into salvation, believed in Jesus as your Savior, you are not saved. You have to make the choice yourself. You have to take that step of faith. You can't follow other people's faith. Let's see what happens next. The water prevailed and increased greatly upon the earth, and the ark floated on the surface of the water. The water prevailed more and more upon the earth, so that all the high mountains everywhere under the heavens were covered. The water prevailed 15 cubits higher, and the mountains were covered. This was a flood over all the earth, not a flood in just one little area, over all the earth. All the flesh that moved on the earth perished, birds and cattle and beasts and every swarming thing that swarms upon the earth, and all mankind. Everyone died except for Noah and his family. Of all that was on the dry land, all in whose nostrils was the breath of the Spirit of life died. Thus, he bottled out every living thing that was upon the face of the land, from man to animals to creeping things and to birds of the sky, and they were blotted out from the earth, and only Noah was left, together with those that were in the ark with him. The water prevailed upon the earth 150 days. But God remembered Noah and all the beasts and all the cattle that were with him in the ark. And God caused a wind to pass over the earth, and the water subsided. God did not forget Noah. That just means it was time for the waters to go down. It was time for Noah to know that God was still with them. Also, the fountains of the deep and the floodgates of the sky were closed, and the rain from the sky was restrained, and the water receded steadily from the earth. At the end of 150 days, the water decreased. In the 7th month, on the 7th day of the month, the ark rested on the mountains of Ararat. The water decreased steadily until the 10th month. In the 10th month, on the 1st day of the month, the tops of the mountains became visible. So it flooded and rained for 40 days and 40 nights. And then they were sitting on the water for over 100 days. But now the water is decreasing. But that doesn't mean they can get out of the boat yet. Just because it looks like the waters were going down doesn't mean they could get out yet. If they got out at that time, they would die. They had to wait until God told them it was time to get out. They had to continue to trust God. The flood was over. The storm was over. But it wasn't time for them to step out of the ark. They still had to wait. Verse 6, then it came about at the end of 40 days that Noah opened a window of the ark which he had made. And he sent out a raven, and it flew here and there until the water was dried up from the earth. But then he sent out a dove from him to see if the water had abated from the face of the land. But the dove found no resting place for the sole of her feet, so she came back to the ark, for the water was on the surface of all the earth. Then he put out his hand and took her and brought her into the ark to himself. So it still wasn't time. He was checking to see if it was time, and that's okay. But it wasn't time yet. Verse 10, so he waited yet another 7 days, and again he sent out the dove from the ark. The dove came to him toward evening, and behold, in her beak was a freshly picked olive leaf. So Noah knew that the water was abated from the earth. Then he waited another 7 days, sent out the dove, but she didn't come back. Now it came about in the 601st year, in the 1st month, on the 1st of the month, the water was dried up from the earth. Then Noah removed the covering of the ark and looked, and behold, the surface of the ground was dried up. In the 2nd month, on the 27th day of the month, the earth was dry. Then God spoke to Noah, saying, go out of the ark, you and your wife and your sons' wives with you. Noah waited until God instructed him to go out of the ark. If you are in a time of waiting, it's important to wait on God before you take a step of faith. If Noah and his family got out of the ark before God said it was okay, they would have drowned in the flood because the flood waters would still be there, or the land wasn't dry. They could have gotten stuck. It would have been dangerous for them. They waited until God said, you can go, and it was safe for them. Wait until God tells you to go, because that's when it will be safe. Obey God even in your times of waiting. He sees you. He hasn't forgotten you. Just continue patiently waiting. Noah and his family were in the ark for almost a year. They waited for almost a year before they could get out. Then he says, bring out with you every living thing of the flesh that is with you, birds and animals, and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth, that they may breed abundantly on the earth and be fruitful and multiply on the earth. So Noah went out, he obeyed God, and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives with him. Every beast, every creeping thing, and every bird, everything that moves on the earth went out by their families from the ark. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord and took every clean animal and every clean bird and offered a burnt offering on the altar. We know that Noah was a truly righteous man. Yes, he obeyed God. He built the ark, but right when he got off the ark, he worshiped God. And then verse 21, the Lord smelled the soothing aroma, and the Lord said to himself, I will never again curse the ground on account of man, for the intent of man's heart is evil from its youth, and I will never again destroy every living thing as I have done. And then he promises, while the earth remains, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night shall not cease. Chapter 9, verse 1. And God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. Obedience brings blessings. Noah obeyed God right here, and God blessed Noah. Noah and his family were blessed, and they were called to be fruitful and multiply, to start over. And he also says, the fear of you and the terror of you will be on every beast of the earth and every bird of the sky with everything that creeps on the ground and all the fish of the sea, and into your hand they are given. So before the flood, the animals were not afraid of man. And so when they were on the ark, just think about it. It wasn't like how animals are with us now, where there's fear and danger. It wasn't like that. They probably obeyed man. But now it says in verse 3, every moving thing that is alive shall be food for you. I give all to you as I gave the green plant. So now they are able to eat animals. And so God put a fear in the animals of man to protect the animals, so that now that man can eat the animals, they don't go extinct and just eat all of the animals. And he probably had to do this because the flood changed the whole way the earth could grow food. And so the animals were another resource. But listen to what God said. He said, you can eat of the animals, verse 4, only you shall not eat flesh with its life, that is its blood. Surely I will require your lifeblood from every beast, I will require it. And from every man's brother, I will require the life of a man. Whoever sheds man's blood, by man his blood shall be shed. For in the image of God he made them. As for you, be fruitful and multiply, populate the earth abundantly and multiply it. Then God spoke to Noah and his sons, saying, now behold, I myself do establish my covenant with you and with your descendants after you, and with every living creature that is with you, the birds and the cattle and every beast of the earth with you, of all that comes out of the ark, even every beast of the earth. I establish my covenant with you, and all flesh shall never again be cut off by the water of the flood, neither shall there be a flood to destroy the earth. This covenant was not just made with man. This covenant was made with man and animals. He promises he will never flood the earth again. Verse 12, God said, this is the sign of the covenant which I am making between me and you and every living creature that is with you for all successive generations. So that means this covenant's for you too. I set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be for a sign of a covenant between me and the earth. It shall come about when I bring a cloud over the earth, that the bow shall be seen in the cloud, and I will remember my covenant which is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh. And never again shall the water become a flood to destroy all flesh. When the bow is in the cloud, then I will look upon it to remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is on the earth. And God said to Noah, this is the sign of the covenant which I have established between me and all flesh that is on the earth. When you see the rainbow in the sky, you can know that that is God's promise to you. Verse 18. Now the sons of Noah who came out of the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and Ham was the father of Canaan. These three were the sons of Noah, and from these the whole earth was populated. Obedience brings blessings. In the midst of wickedness, one family, one person obeyed God. And from that one person, he and his family were saved, and they were blessed, and they were now the people that we are from. From their family, the whole earth was populated. God blesses obedience. And the first thing that he wants you to obey, if you've never believed in Jesus, he wants you to choose to believe that Jesus took the punishment for your sin. And Jesus, after he died, he didn't stay dead. He came back to life 3 days later, and he lives in heaven today. And when you believe that Jesus died for you, you can be saved from the punishment of sin. Choose to believe today. Choose to obey God today. Choose to hear his voice, to see his promise in the rainbow. Don't look at your flesh. Don't look at what you want, but fix your eyes on Jesus.